What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Somewhat Sports Podcast. My name is Chris, and I'm joined by two of the greats in this industry, Jurg and Dame. Fellas, how are we this week?
Well, I'm doing good. Better than last week. Had a better day of work, week of work, so I'm doing good.
I am doing relatively fantastic, lads. Unfortunately, not on vacation anymore. Sad boy. Sad that I actually have to work again. But it was a good first day back at work. And it's good, as always, to do a podcast with two of my favorite compatriots in this whole world. I love it when the big three are always together.
It's okay when we're all together, but it's been happening a lot less frequently as of late. But we're here to change that. We have a lot.
2 weeks I'll be in Nashville, so
Well, there you go. So the streak already ends before it even starts. We have a bunch of basketball news to talk about. That's right. It'll be an NBA dominated episode this week. We have coaches being fired left and right. We have the NBA playoffs reaching the conference finals. And then, of course, we had the NBA draft lottery a few nights ago. One team won the Wembanyama. No, did I say that right? Wembanyama? Yeah, Wembanyama sweepstakes. We'll discuss who, and then we'll discuss the order in general, basically, on who first, second, third. I'll be honest, guys. I'm not that in touch with like draft prospects this year. Ever since the Knicks became like better, I've kind of been off that. I only know like the top three prospects this draft, but we're not here to discuss that. We're here to discuss just the lottery in general. Possible movements that might occur with these teams. If they want to move out of their pick, if they want to move up, if they want to move down, all that. So that'll be the order. Conference finals analysis first, and then we'll talk about coaches being fired, where teams will go after that, and then, of course, we'll discuss the lottery in general. Fellas, are we ready?
Yes, sir.
yep.
Beautiful. NBA Conference Finals, we have the Miami Heat versus the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference, and in the Western Conference, we have the Lakers versus the Denver Nuggets. Let's start off with the Eastern Conference first. Miami Heat versus Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics, I believe, are the 2 seed. Yeah, if I'm correct. And then, of course, the Miami Heat are the 8th seed. Home court advantage goes to the Celtics. Game 1 just happened last night. Miami Heat take Game 1. I don't even want to say that they stole Game 1. They just took it. Fellas, we are in for in my opinion, a similar series to last year where it was grit and grind to the wire, just basically trench warfare type shit between both teams. It went into Game 7. It was a close Game 7. The Celtics won ultimately, but I believe we're gonna get a similar style of a series this year. Heat take Game 1, and boy did they take Game 1. Jimmy Butler has been the best. I think. Well, him and Jokic have been the best players in these playoffs, man, and he just showed it. Jimmy Butler has been on one, and playoff Jimmy's an actual thing. He has showed up defensively. I mean, we talk about offensively, but defensively, he's been killing it. He had Jason Tatum in the gulag last night. Jimmy Butler is just spearheading this Miami Heat team. Man, he is leading the charge, and he has taken a team. Look, I say this with my other chat. This team is a bunch of NPCs and Jimmy Butler, basically, and he has taken the NPCs and he has been succeeding. And I feel like not a lot of other players can do that. Jimmy Butler is a rare dying breed, but he has taken the Miami Heat, filled with NPCs, and have taken Game 1. And to be honest, fellas, look, I suspect the Celtics will bounce back. The Heat, I think, have no pressure on them, man. They made it this far. Jimmy Butler's playing out of his mind. Kyle Lowry's playing well, and I just the energy of Jimmy Butler is kind of infectious, and like I think everyone's just kind of just rebounding off him, man. They're just like they kind of go where Jimmy goes, and Jimmy will take him as far as he can, and I just think they're kind of inspired by Jimmy's play, and I think smart veterans like Kyle Lowry and Kevin Love to an extent does help, especially in this type of stratosphere. But it doesn't hurt when Gabe Vincent and Max Strus and Caleb Martin and all of them are helping with the shot making as well. Look, Tyler Hero, there's a possibility Tyler Hero might come back if the Heat make it far, bro. But the Miami Heat, they kind of have the momentum right now after taking Game 1. The Celtics, this is tough, man. I don't know, man. They coast so much, bro. They coast so much. I don't understand them. They're the most talented team in the Eastern Conference, in my opinion. And now, like, I feel like dropping game one to Philly, I kind of expect them to come back. I don't trust Philly in the slightest. With the Miami Heat, man, you can't be fucking around like this. Like, dropping game one, it's not like there's no blanket of safety as there was when you played against the Sixers, because you kind of knew where that was going. Like, you don't trust the Sixers. I trust the Miami Heat, and they're the hottest team in the league right now. So, man, I was gonna say this is kind of cheating because like we saw game one. I was gonna say Celtics in 6, but I'm gonna go Celtics in 7. I think they'll figure it out. I think that like you have to understand, man, you can't be playing around with the Miami Heat. And I worry that if this goes the distance, Jimmy might get fatigued. And I don't know, the Boston Celtics defense, they'll wake up eventually. I do trust them on that end to a certain extent, but if this goes the distance, I worry about Jimmy's fatigue, and I think it will go the distance. So Jason Tatum will wake up, but man, did they do a defensive masterclass? It was a defensive masterclass on Jason Tatum, bro. It was like what 0 shot attempts in the fourth. I think 5 in total in the second half. Oof. I mean, if you could cut off the head of the snake, you're good. If you could take off one of Jason or Jalen, there's a good shot you win this series. I just worry that because they rely on the veterans a little too much, specifically Jimmy, I don't know. I think it might fatigue them. And I do think this series will go the distance. But, man, I mean, the Heat have proven so many people wrong. I got the Celtics in 7. Would not be mad if the Heat won this series. Would not be mad. Jurg, you're a Miami Heat fan. They've made it this far. Jimmy has been the first or second best player these playoffs. This is your team. They have outperformed expectations, and they are literally making life hell for a bunch of other teams. So, what do you make of this run so far, and what do you make of the series in general going forward?
Great run, obviously, coming in as the 8th seed. And you guys know, and I was very displeased by the fact that we lost to the Hawks in the first play-in game. And we were even down in that second play-in game for a bit. Like, it looked like the season was going to slip out of the Heat's hands. But something in the second half of that game, and especially the fourth quarter of that second play-in game against Chicago, really flipped for the Heat. And I think everything just stems from that point on. When you look at the first round against the Bucks, you could say, "Oh, Giannis didn't play this, that, and the third," but this team took advantage of that fact. Won both their games on the road, include at home. Excuse me, won 2 out of 3 in Milwaukee, and then taking multiple fourth quarter comebacks, multiple double-digit deficit comebacks to take that series to upset the number 1 seed and to make it. Then you look at round 2 against the New York Knicks, taking game 1 on the road. Yet again, they've done that in all 3 of these series. They've taken that first game on the road, and then splitting in the first 2 and going back to Miami and just playing that hard defense, man. And what have I always said, boys, about any Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra, Miami Heat team? If there is one thing that just about every single Heat team in franchise history can do year in and year out ever since Pat Riley got here, it's play defense. It's play a smothering style of defense, a team-orientated, high IQ, hand in the passing lane defense. And that's what this Heat team continues to do with big-time moments, forcing turnovers and bad shots at the end of that Bucks series. Bucks didn't even get a chance to get up a shot before the buzzer sounded at the end of Game 5 for Miami to win. Jalen Brunson with the costly turnover in Game 6 of the Heat-Knicks series to seal it for Miami. And in this game, you know, like you guys mentioned, first half, Boston really could have came away with things at the start of the third quarter. The first half was a great thing for them, but Miami just locked in on both sides of the ball. 46 points in the third quarter for the Heat. And like you kind of mentioned it, Chris, Jimmy Butler doing everything. 35 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, 6 steals. Was an absolute beast for the Heat against the Celtics. It's a number of things. It's the fact that while there is some fatigue, this is basically a 7-man rotation at this point in terms of who Spo trusts, with spare minutes here and there to, I can't believe I'm saying Cody Zeller of all people, but yes, and Duncan Robinson. And this team just finds ways to win. And I know that's cliche to say, but how else can you explain it about an 8th-seeded team that upset the number 1 seed in the East? Or even in the league, if I'm not mistaken. The Bucks had the best record in the league in the playoffs going into this. How else can you say this about a Miami Heat team that was going into a second-round series and oh, the athleticism and the out rebounding the Knicks did against the Cavs in the first round, but Miami completely shut that down. Mitchell Robinson was not the same player against the Heat in the second round as he was in the first against the Cleveland Cavaliers. A Heat team that has, I'm gonna say it right now, man. I know legacy wise it's Pop, but I can't think of a head coach better than Eric Spoelstra in terms of being able to adjust on a game by game basis to be able to fix things. Like, you can't convince me that there is a better coach than that uh, in the NBA today. And it is a number of factors that help lead to the success here and there. Like you said, it's the veterans of this team. Chris, Pat Riley loves his veterans. It's Kevin Love and his timely shooting in moments. It's Kyle Lowry and his timely baskets, especially like the fourth quarter against the Knicks. It felt like every other shot by Lowry was going to go in. The 3-point shooting, which was the biggest surprise to me of everything, the two biggest things of why the Heat have been successful, the 3-point shooting, which was towards the bottom of the league this season after it was first last year, revitalized in this playoffs, taking it to the next level. And I know I might be saying that, and there have been some bad shooting nights. I understand that. Still better than what they were doing in the regular season. This Heat team is a much better 3-point shooting team in these playoffs than what they were for a consistent 82-game stretch of the regular season. But the number one thing is Jimmy Butler. He is, you said it, Chris, arguably the best player in these playoffs. The only player that I would maybe even give that to is the actual MVP that should have been the MVP, not the fraud that lost in the second round yet again. But Jimmy Butler has been that guy in the postseason. He has made big shot after big shot for the Heat. And the big thing that I think with Jimmy that has rubbed off on his teammates, it's not just his own individual skill, it's not his playmaking. I think this Heat team compared to the other Heat teams, and I will say this is probably of the three of the last 4 years of us making the Eastern Conference Finals, I would have argued that this wasn't the most talented of the three Heat teams that have made conference finals in the past, in these past 4 years. But I think, at least for game one, what we saw from this Heat team that we did not see consistently last season is an aggressiveness offensively to go at Boston, for Bam not to be intimidated in any which way by Robert Williams. Robert Williams was, you could argue, this is a guy who last season we were talking about defensive player of the year candidate. We were talking about he was the X factor in that Warriors series. Had he been healthy against the Warriors, who knows what it could have been. Robert Williams was arguably, in terms of net rating, I think he may have been the worst Celtics defender last night. And if not worse, significantly below where he is on a normal game-by-game basis. The Celtics team that for a lot of the season was a top 10 defense, maybe top 5 at points, has been a bottom half of the league in terms of playoff defense. This has not been the same Celtics team. This is a Celtics team that allowed the Atlanta Hawks to win 2 games in the first round, and I'm sorry, the Hawks shouldn't have won 2 games in that series. Flat out, they shouldn't have. With the choke job that happened with Philly, and yes, we'll kind of go into detail with that a little bit later when we talk about coaches, this Celtics team was 6 minutes away in game 6 and a potential half away in game 7 from losing the series, and us asking a lot of questions about this team on if Tatum and Brown can make it, if the bench is right, if Joe Mazzulla is a good enough head coach. And I know some people might say, well, they fought back from that. Man, when you get that close too many times, when you tempt fate that many times, at some point, fate will no longer be in your favor. And last night, the third quarter, the Celtics tempted fate. Like you said, Chris, for whatever reason, the Celtics played, and maybe this is more a body language thing. I don't think this is actually how they think. But body language and subconscious wise, when they went up against Miami, because they were up at double digits at some point in the second quarter, if I'm not mistaken, it felt like they figured the Heat were going to give up in game 1. And Miami Heat teams just do not give up. This is a team that is well-rounded. They're well-coached. They have arguably the best player in the postseason. If not number 1, he's number 2. And it might be a 1A, 1B situation if we're being 100% honest here. A team that is seeing their big man in Bam play the most aggressive stretch of basketball in his career over the last little bit. Kyle Lowry, the veteran stepping up, 3-point shooting, getting threes to go when they need it. 6 guys scoring 15-plus last night, tying a record in the postseason. This Heat team, I'm not saying this is the best Heat team in the last 4 years. It's not. Again, entering the postseason, I wouldn't have put it as that. But the cohesiveness of this Heat team is just something to behold. And I know they are my team. I was going to go with that. I honestly, even if I wasn't a Heat fan, I would go with them over the Celtics in the series. I'm going Heat in 6 in these conference finals because, and I know it's one game, but what Miami did is show that Jason Tatum still has a lot of work to do. You have to as the guy that a lot of people were saying maybe would have been for fifth place in the MVP conversation this season, as the guy that people for the last 2 to 3 years have been anointing as a superstar in this league, as a guy that ever since that rookie postseason run when they made it to the conference finals, Tatum was supposed to be one of these next guys, has not proven that. He has not. Simply put, in the biggest moment to start this series, he wasn't able to perform. And you could say that he got the 51 points in that game 7, and that is a fair point. I'm telling you, you got to do that every single freaking night. The guy that he loves to pattern his game after, that he texted Kobe before game 7 last season because he still has his number. Dude, you, if you're going to talk all this stuff and we're going to hype you up this way, you got to play like this every single game. You know who's coming with that energy and intensity every single game in the postseason? It's not Jason Tatum. It's not Jaylen Brown. It's not Joel Embiid. It's not Julius Randle. It's not Donovan Mitchell. It's Jimmy Butler. Heat in 6 in the Eastern Conference Finals this year.
So yeah, just going on the Heat, they like no one outside of I guess them expected them to be in this situation this far in the playoffs. I guess, especially after losing that first playing game, it was looking really rough for them. But and it seems like from the first round to the second round to not even this round, people still are like, when is this gonna end? Like, when are they gonna run out of fumes? And they're not. They're playing really hard basketball. They're not giving up. Obviously, like you guys mentioned, the tough defense. That's just how the Miami Heat play. And Jimmy Butler, in my opinion, has been the best player in the entire playoffs. Just the fact that he's doing it with the talent around him, that is a bunch of undrafted players that just kind of spot up and shoot. Compared to Jokic, who has pretty much more talent around him than Jimmy Butler does. But irregardless, Jimmy Butler also does it on both ends of the floor, and his energy is contagious and has been contagious throughout the playoffs. Of course, Giannis did get hurt against the Bucks, but regardless, Jimmy Butler is averaging like 38 points a game. I don't think Giannis would have made a difference, so I still think they would have had a good chance to win that series. And then against the Knicks, he just kind of willed them to that victory as well, winning in 6 games, especially with the ankle injury. That was extremely tough to deal with. You saw how big it was in some of the pictures. And now in this series, it was a huge. I didn't really see the second half of the game. Fell asleep early, but this is gonna be a really hard fought series because both of these teams are so good defensively. And the thing with the Heat also is like, I truly believe in the NBA and pro sports. Hard work only gets you so far. At one point, talent overcomes that. It pretty much is true in most of the playoffs, in all sports. But I mean, the Heat are really pushing that narrative really far because they're not as talented as the Bucks were. I don't think they're as talented as the Knicks were, and they're definitely not as talented as a team as the Celtics are. So to see them win that game 1, which is huge, winning game 1 on the road is like, it's so huge for teams. It puts a lot of doubt into the team that's favored. You obviously take over home court advantage, and it gives you a bunch of confidence for the Heat going forward. We'll see what happens in game 2, but winning game 1 is incredibly huge, especially with a comeback win like that. Like Jurg mentioned, the Celtics probably expected the Heat to kind of back down when they went up double digits, but the Heat battled back and had a huge third quarter, and obviously Jimmy Butler with an incredible game. But as for the Celtics, it's like you're kind of expecting them all season to be that team, them and the Bucks. And once the Bucks got eliminated in the first round, you're like, all right, like this is the Celtics conference for the taking. Like they should be in the finals, like easy. And then you see the Hawks series go 6, which that should have been a sweep. At worst 5 games. Philly, they went all the way to 7 games, and they lost game 5 at home, which is really bad. You could have ended it in 6 or 5 as well. So it's just so much inconsistency with this team, and it starts at the top with Jason Tatum. I mean, people want to anoint him as the next superstar and next like league MVP, but he just he goes ghost too many times. Of course, he had the incredible Game 7 performance, not taking anything away from that, but you can't just look at that game and be like, this is who he is, because he's not. He's had way too many games where he's a no-show, where he's ghost, where he kind of defers to Jaylen Brown, or he takes a lot of the game off, or just looks inconsistent. That just when your best players like that, the rest of the team is going to be like that, and that's why I feel like with the Celtics, you just really can't trust them when you kind of expect them to be that team in the East. It's been like that for the entire playoffs, and I wouldn't be surprised if this series he has a bunch of ghost games as well. Um, it'll be dependent on if the Heat are able to keep this up, keep up the shooting. Jimmy Butler, if he's gonna be able to keep it up, like Chris said, he might run out of fumes towards the end of the series, but that's still to be determined. I'm not betting against Jimmy Butler at this point with the way he's been playing. But yeah, it should be a good series, a really good hard fought series. On the defensive end as well. I think the two best defensive teams left in the entire playoffs. Um, what a prediction! I'm gonna go Celtics in 7 because I will side with Chris here. I do think towards the end Jimmy Butler might run out of fumes, and it seems like the Heat kind of only have one way to win offensively. It's kind of just like these spot up like kick and drive. Like it's kind of they're depending on Jimmy Butler a lot to kind of create these open looks for threes. I feel like if Jimmy Butler leaves the court, it's kind of hard for them to score. So I'm gonna go with the Celtics in 7.
We move on to the Western Conference, where we have the Los Angeles Lakers versus the Denver Nuggets. Fellas, the Denver Nuggets lead 1-0. Basically, the summary of the game, the Nuggets dominated for 3 quarters, and then the Lakers they started trimming that big lead in the end of the third, and then they came back in the fourth, and then I think the Nuggets just kind of survived. So, yeah, Nikola Jokic went off. I would appreciate if someone searched up his stat line for me, but I think it was like 30-something, 20-something, and it was a triple-double. I know he had a triple-double, but yeah, they won 132 to 126. Yeah, so I was watching this game. I think the first half went exactly how I mean, I want to say exactly how I expected. But look, we always hear about the altitude in Denver, and like it seems real because I mean they were controlling the pace to a T that first game, that first half. They were just getting anything they want. They were making it seemed like they were making every shot they took. Lakers are just struggling to keep up defensively, and like the Lakers are also, I think offensively they were doing okay in the first half, but just defensively they couldn't stop the Nuggets at all. But all in all, I think it was mostly an offensive oriented game between both teams. Nuggets were making some tough shots. Lakers were also making a lot of their shots as well. I know everyone talks about the Nuggets, but LeBron was doing his thing. AD was doing his thing. AD actually had a really good game. The Nuggets controlled the most of this game. Majority of this game, they were in control. Towards the end, and like they do this a lot, where it's kind of similar to like the Celtics, where they kind of take their foot off the gas, and it's a little too much coasting. And then of course Lakers came back. Yeah, AD did his thing, LeBron did his thing, and then it was kind of, I think because they might have ran out of fumes at the end. I feel like LeBron kind of did because he had some questionable decision making towards the end there. Turnover that gave it up. He had Jamal Murray in one possession, and Jamal Murray was gassed towards the end. Jamal Murray has these random stinks where he just like runs out of gas. I think the Lakers were down 3. Braun had Murray on him, and he decided to shoot the 3 instead. Didn't understand that, but again, I think it was like the fumes. I think it was the fumes. But Nuggets need to, because I've seen this a few times, these playoffs where they're up big and then they kind of lose leads a little bit, but then they like win it at the end. They need to be a bit more disciplined. I don't think the Lakers, they're not. That's like you don't want to do that against the Lakers where you just kind of lose everything and like you take your foot off the gas and become undisciplined. Like that's not the team you could just like fuck around with because of the two other players on that other team, and AD and LeBron. So, uh, Nuggets will have to learn from their mistakes. I love people saying that, you know, if it wasn't for Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic making those crazy shots, we would have won. Yeah. If it wasn't for the Nuggets putting the ball in the hoop, the objective of the basketball game, then the Lakers would have won. Lakers fans never cease to amaze me, man. It's incredible. It's incredible. However, I think Rui Hachimura did a good job on Jokic in the fourth quarter, I believe. I'm pretty sure Jokic and Mike Malone will figure it out and they'll adjust. I don't know why people are making it seem like the Lakers unlocked this key that Rui is going to be the Jokic stopper here. I'm sure the Lakers will adjust as well. Darvin Ham did some really good adjustments towards the second half there. But I also think the Nuggets will make adjustments. So, I think the Nuggets take this in 6. I think, well, game 2 is tonight, actually. If the Nuggets win game 2, which I think they will, yeah, this will be wrapped up in 6. Again, I think if this goes far, I also think the Lakers can't afford to go the distance with the Nuggets. I also think because of the altitude in Denver, you don't want to have Game 7 in Denver. I think if the Lakers want to win, they would have to win in 6, and you have to wrap it up in Los Angeles. I don't know. I just don't know if LeBron is. He's at that age, man, where I can't like rely on his stamina. And also, can I rely on AD to go the distance? No. Other than that, I mean, Austin Reeves kind of did his thing towards the end there. D'Lo, inconsistent. What a cone on defense, man. But also, the role players for the Nuggets step up. They're deep. They are deep. We have KCP, Bruce Brown making shots like that. It's tough to beat them. So Jokic will do his thing. Murray will do his thing. But I think the depth here will lead the Nuggets to a series victory and go to the finals. Yeah, I got Nuggets in 6. Dame, what did you make of game 1, and how do you think the series will go?
So watching this whole I guess I'll start with the first half. I was watching the first half, and the Nuggets obviously were blowing them out from the start. They had a huge lead from start to I guess the third quarter. But like as I was watching, I'm like the Lakers. I don't think they're playing bad. Like they're getting good shots. They're playing really well on offense. They just can't stop the Nuggets. The Nuggets are just playing better than them. That's all it is. It's not like a game where it's like, the Lakers look lost. Like this is gonna be a quick series. It just looked like the Lakers just couldn't stop them. Or the Nuggets were just hitting really good shots over a good defensive team. But then obviously second half, the Lakers made some adjustments with putting Rui on Jokic and then kind of having Anthony Davis roam in the paint as like a safety. So he kind of doubling Jokic as you're having Rui, and then if he gets too low or he gets past Rui, you have Anthony Davis there at the basket to help because you put Anthony Davis on the worst shooter, so he doesn't have to go on the 3-point line. I think that's a strategy that could definitely work because Jokic couldn't be stopped one-on-one. The third guy in the MVP race, by the way, not the MVP. But LeBron and AD, I think, played incredible until LeBron's last minute or last minute and a half, where he had a turnover, he had missed free throws, and he had that stupid missed 3-point shot at the end where he had Jamal Murray on him, who had 5 fouls. So he wasn't, whether he did get fouled or not, Jamal Murray isn't a good defender regardless. So he could have got either to a free throw line or could have got an easy bucket at the rim and make it a 1-point game with 40 seconds left. It's not like there was 10 seconds left where you need to tie or game was over. So I think that was a really stupid and questionable decision by LeBron. But like Chris said, it could have been just like he was gassed and his head wasn't in it. But, I mean, can't be perfect at age 38. But regardless, really impressed with the Nuggets. Incredible game by Jokic, obviously, 34, 21, 14. I mean, he was the best player on the floor by far. And all the Nuggets role players, credit to them for stepping up and making huge shots. I think it's going to be very important going forward, especially if the Lakers go with the matchup of putting Rui on Jokic and having Anthony Davis kind of roam in the paint. The Nuggets are going to need that guy that Anthony Davis is guarding to hit corner shots or whatever 3-point shots that he's going to be lined up at, because that will kind of take Anthony Davis out the paint, and obviously Jokic is going to eat Rui alive one-on-one. The only way they could stop him is if Anthony Davis is kind of helping with the double team down in the paint. But yeah, Austin Reeves played great for the Lakers as well. I don't think the Lakers played a bad game. Like, I just think the Nuggets were a better team and played a better game in that game 1. And I think LeBron kind of cost the Lakers a real chance to win the game at the end. I know it's crazy to say that LeBron James cost his team in the last minute of the game to win the game. But it is what it is. I think it's going to be a very hard-fought series. I think the Lakers are going to win game 2. It's going to be tough, obviously. And obviously, the Nuggets know that the Lakers will probably go with that matchup with Rui and on Jokic and AD kind of hovering. So I'm sure the Nuggets aren't just going to make no adjustments. I feel like a lot of people on Twitter are like, oh, yeah, Lakers found the way to beat the Nuggets, and the Nuggets have no answer. Like, they're a number 1 seed for a reason, and Mike Malone is one of the best coaches in the league. I promise you they're going to have adjustments to the Lakers' adjustments. It's going to be about which team plays better, and I think at the end of the day it's going to be which role players play better, because I think both stars are kind of going to cancel each other out with Jamal Murray and Jokic, and then AD and LeBron. I think all 4 of those guys are going to play great each and every single game this series. I think it's going to come down to the role players. But yeah, I think the Lakers are gonna take this game too, and I do have the Lakers in 7. I know it's super tough to win Game 7 in Denver. But I'm not betting against LeBron James. I would pick him in 6, but I'm gonna give respect to the Nuggets where it's due, and say that they take it all the way to 7, and LeBron takes it in 7.
So this is going to be a series that, despite game one, despite what some people believe about I think it will go the distance. Yes, the Lakers struggled defensively, mighty so in the first half. The Nuggets deserve a lot of credit for that. Their ability of absolutely just great ball movement with this team, with the Jokic and Murray handoffs with one another, and even just them setting up other guys on the team, is extremely talented. Enough cannot be said about those two guys as a dynamic duo. I would argue, honestly, the best duo in the NBA at this point, just from a pure talent perspective. I think you guys kind of mentioned it. The Lakers didn't necessarily, they didn't play a great first half in any which way, but what it was that it was just a couple stretches of time that cost them, and you cannot rely on coming back down double digits every single time you find yourselves in the hole, especially the hole that the Lakers found themselves in. This isn't the Grizzlies. This isn't this year's iteration of the Warriors. This is the number one seed in the West for a very good reason in the Denver Nuggets, and they are a team that, if they go up double digits, they can close the game out, or in this case, you can claw your way back. I think that's more, I don't want to say luck. I don't like giving things in sports up to luck, but I don't expect the Nuggets. If the Nuggets go up by 20 again in the series, I don't think the game's going to finish only by 6. Defensively, it's going to be an adjustment. Like you guys have said, both sides are going to adjust to one another. I think there needs to be a massive adjustment, because I think very quickly in the series, Michael Malone is going to realize how thin his bench is. I think a little bit thinner than most of us thought, even myself, admittedly. And how are they going to consistently guard LeBron and AD throughout a 7-game series, especially Anthony Davis? Like, I love Jokic, but the biggest flaw to him is still that him as a 1v1 defender, especially against AD, it's just, that's not the situation you want for yourself in any way, shape, or form. But, and at the same time, throwing Rui Hachimura or a Jared Vanderbilt or someone, I don't know if he's healthy enough. Maybe Mo Bamba could finally see some playing time in these playoffs. Just something for the Lakers to have a different defender as the primary guy, initial guy on Jokic, I should say, with AD being able to play that amazing help defense. I kind of equated to what the Bucks did a couple years ago with Giannis on Jimmy, where if Giannis wasn't the primary defender, he was immediately there for support, and the Bucks ended up sweeping the Heat in 4 games 2 years ago in the playoffs. If only a great head coach would have been able to do that again in this postseason, but you didn't have that, Milwaukee. But back to Denver. Denver and LA, it's tough. I think, like Dame said, it's going to come down to the bench. And for as inconsistent as, technically speaking, D'Lo is, the Lakers' role players have been a little bit better than the Nuggets' role players this postseason. And I'm strictly talking about production off the bench. Again, I think the X factor for me this series is going to be the consistency of the Denver Nuggets bench overall. And when I say, like, that doesn't count Aaron Gordon, who's in the starting lineup on a consistent that is legitimately the guys that come off the bench that give you 15, 20, 25 minutes as your 6th, 7th, 8th guys. There needs to be a higher level of consistency, because you want to talk about guys wearing down. We talked about that with LeBron. We talked about that with Jimmy in the East. You need to be able to have at least a reliable 8-man rotation at this point in the postseason. And I kind of have to wonder if Michael Malone is starting to question how deep his rotation can really go, guys. Like, that would be my biggest concern for the Denver Nuggets as this series were to continue. Because if you look at just the bench in game 1, the only guy who went above 20 minutes was Bruce Brown. And the other 2 guys who have been consistently coming off the bench in this postseason, Jeff Green and Christian Braun, combined for only 3 points on 1 of 5 shooting. And I know you could say, well, Murray and Jokic had it, and KCP had a really good game, and Brown, of course, he shot well. You cannot have just 19 points off the bench for the remainder of this series. LA, for what you want to say about him, 23 points off their bench. Now, that's not much better. I know that, but it's still something. I think for me personally, the X factor ultimately in this series is the bench to me. It's not the weather, not weather, but it's not the climate. Like, I don't take that into account, because I had to deal with my team being in the second round, because apparently our defense wasn't what won us 2 games in Miami, or 3 games in Miami. It was the actual fucking weather outside in an indoor basketball arena. So there are your quote unquote basketball experts on live TV saying that. But I think, you're at this point, you don't blame weather, you don't blame climate and the higher altitude. It's just straight up be on the court, play to your best ability. And if you get outworked, you get outworked. That being said, who do I ultimately pick in the series? I kind of said it's going to go the distance already. It will go the distance. I'm picking Denver in 7. And the only reason I'm kind of 50-50 about this, because I said it once already in this postseason, I'll say it again. he may not be as good as he once was, but he could be good once as he ever was. And if this series goes to 7, I'm not buying the whole LA would be worried thing. They have the greatest Game 7 player, I think, arguably in NBA history in LeBron James. And I would be very terrified if this series ends up going to 7 because he could sum it up just once. He just has to do that 1 or 2 times in a series, what he's already done in this postseason, and the Lakers could win the series. That's what it's going to be all about. So just barely I'm going with it, but I'm going Denver in 7 to make it to the NBA Finals for I think the first time in franchise history. My and if you want those kind of facts on a daily basis, we put up the polls on at SomewhatSports on IG in our polls to give the people a little bit of information when they go game in and game out. So there's that. I'm going Denver in 7, but again, it's by the thinnest of margin. This Lakers team deserves so much credit for getting to this point because very equal to the Heat. This is arguably the biggest surprise of the playoffs to a lot of people.
Oh, I love that. A big fuck you to other fans who want the Celtics Lakers. Blow me. I'll give me
Fuck you.
give me Heat versus the Denver Nuggets. I love it. I love it.
Yes, sir.
Ah, man. Man. I mean, look, we talked about 1A and 1B with Jimmy and Jokic. NBA Finals between them would be solid.
If the two best players in the postseason actually did meet up with one another, I mean, only crybabies would say that that's not a good finals. So
I mean, we might have him on the. He might be a third of this podcast. Who knows?
nah, Dame's not a crybaby.
Yeah. All right.
No.
So yeah, that'll do it.
Heat are second on my list in who I want to win the finals. So
that'll do it for conference final analysis. We move on over to coaches in the NBA getting fired left and right, dropping like flies. My goodness. All right. So the list here includes, and I apologize if you could hear an ice cream truck going off in the background. It is summer, fellas.
That's how you know it's summer.
Yep. Coach openings. The Bucks, they fired Mike Budenholzer, much to the chagrin of Jurg. The Suns fired Monty Williams. 76ers fired Doc Rivers. Pistons fired Dwayne Casey. And the Raptors also fired Nick Nurse. I understand that we're a little late with these, but now that like a bunch of openings are there's a bunch of openings, we might as well just talk about everything. And also the Rockets hired Ime Udoka. Yeah, so I mean, look, for the Rockets, I can't believe Ime Udoka is getting a second opportunity. But I mean, look, they're a young team. I don't know if they're rebuilding because of this whole James Harden rumor that's going around. Ime did a great job in Boston in terms, like on the court, like he did really well. He seemed to have a really good relationship with Jason Tatum, and like you could kind of see the contrast between the Celtics this season, the Celtics last season. I think they bought into Udoka a little bit more. I think the Rockets just in general will buy into Ime Udoka. I do think that it'll have the quote unquote respect of the players on his team. I wouldn't have chosen him, but he does have, I guess, a proven track record as a coach. Albeit it's like a small sample size as a head coach. But again, the Rockets are not the best run organization. I just don't know the direction of the Rockets. Like, I don't know if this necessarily fits because does Ime go there? I mean, he's getting a set. The thing is, like, I don't think he could pick and choose. Like, I think the fact that he's getting a second opportunity at his, like, doorstep, he's going to take it. I don't think he was like, well, who's going to be on my team next year? It's like, no, like, he kind of fucked up off the court. So, I mean, you're not going to be picky and choosy if, like, an opportunity like this pulls up again. So, I just don't know. Like, is he going to have a team full of young guys led by Jalen Green and Sengun and, you know, Porter Jr., or do you have James Harden, and are they going to trade the fourth pick, etc., for, like, more established stars? So, I don't know. I think Ime hiring, I don't think he deserves it, but they got him. He's a good coach. I just don't know the direction of the Rockets. That one's weird to me. Before we go on, what did you guys make of Udoka signing with the Rockets? Jurg?
I was not really surprised, fortunately / unfortunately. Look, sports has proven one thing. All that matters is can you help a team win? And if you can do that, your on court, off the court stuff, sometimes be damned. Dudes have literally, and I'm not saying in this particular sport, but just in general in sports, guys have killed, guys have murdered, and they've been back on the field, back on the court, whatever you want to say. Like, I wasn't necessarily, and I know Udoka didn't commit something equivalent of taking a life. I understand that, obviously, but with everything that we know of, and we still don't know everything which I think is the biggest disappointment about Adam Silver in the NBA this season. Just us not really getting the full picture of what happened in Boston last year behind the scenes. It wasn't a surprise to me that he was eventually going to get the second opportunity. Chris, I think we called it last year, didn't we, when we talked about him being fired? I could have sworn we said he was going to get a job within a year's time, at least. Like,
Probably.
it wasn't a surprise. This is just how sports work. So at the end of the day, this is what happens. Like, he's proven it just in his first season, his only season as a head coach. He took a team to the NBA Finals. So he's a good coach. Like, I don't think a lot of people are going to say on court wise, on court product that this was a bad decision, but maybe keep the office staff and assistants away from Udoka. I'm just saying. Just a thought out there, Houston.
Yeah, I mean, I'm questionable about the signing because the big thing about this Rockets team is you heard a lot of like rumors and stuff how they're super immature and they're not buying into the coach and they kind of just go about things their own way and they're not really buying into the whole team thing and winning and stuff. And you bring in a guy who had an affair with a co-worker, and I don't know if that's the right leader to bring into a bunch of immature young guys. We'll see how that works out. I'm sure they'll all be joking around about it, and I don't know how much they'll really buy into it, but I guess you have to hire a guy who made it to the NBA Finals, and you hope that your guys kind of grow up and are able to buy into what he's coaching into that organization, because they obviously need a whole culture like rebuild. It's gonna be, like Chris mentioned, it's gonna be interesting this whole James Harden saga. He coached Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, so I'm sure he'll be able to coach James Harden, and he'll be able to adjust to that. But I think the biggest question mark is gonna be those young guys, if they're gonna be able to buy into what he's trying to sell and trying to rebuild that organization.
I think for me personally, just really fast to end it off,
Uh-huh.
I think there's a 1 to 2 year window of making this team a legitimate top 4 seed in the West contender again. Now that Udoka's there, and we've kind of said this before. No, that's what I'm saying. I think organizationally they're going to try to take those steps. And what is this league about? Sometimes, guys, just like life, it's about connections. And I've said it to friends this week, and I'll say it again. I think it wouldn't surprise me if after the 2023-2024 season, Jaylen Brown is going to be wearing a Houston Rockets jersey, because that's a guy that Udoka got a lot out of. Like, this guy has connections. He's well liked around this league. And look, if these young guys in Houston, like Dame said, I agree. I think there was a massive culture problem the last 2 seasons in Houston. And I think a lot of this young core, I would get rid of like 90% of it. Just because you have young players doesn't mean they're all going to become something. And aside from Alfred Şengün, I'm not convinced 100% in anybody else on this team. I think if you're not going to buy in, it's a one-way ticket to these guys being dealt in packages to get legitimate players back to help Udoka. In Udoka led franchise coaching-wise is not going to be a rebuild/tank team for very long. I think they made this hiring with a plan in place that in the next year or two they have specific moves they want to make. So expect Houston to be one of the busiest teams over the next 2 off seasons.
Yeah. All right, other openings. Like I said, Milwaukee Bucks, Phoenix Suns, 76ers, Detroit Pistons, Toronto Raptors. So, well, here's the thing. Out of all of these teams, I think Bucks, Suns, 76ers, those are like the 3 teams where I guess, I mean, I don't even want to say Philly because, like, I guess quote unquote contenders, right? Let's just put that, like, they're the more ready to win teams. I think for the Pistons here, like, I'm always in the mindset of, like, I'm a young rebuilding team. I want a young coach. Coincidentally, the Suns fired Monty Williams. I think the Pistons should go after Monty Williams. I think he's easily a player's coach. I think, like, in contrast to the Houston Rockets, like, we talked about how they have a bunch of, like, young talent, but they're, like, immature young talent, right? I think for the Pistons, Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duran, like, they have a plethora of, like, young talent that I think Marvin Bagley's there. I mean, Marvin Bagley's been there for, I don't know. I just said Marvin Bagley. But, like, I think they have a plethora of, like, young talent, I believe. And they also have the 5th pick coming that are, like, I think more level-headed and will buy in as opposed to, like, the Houston Rockets. So, and I think Monty Williams is the ultimate player's coach. I think they'll actually listen to, like, someone like Monty Williams. I think Monty Williams, like, he kind of switched the culture of the Phoenix Suns there once they hired him, right? And, like, as soon as they hired him, they saw immediate success. I'm not saying the Pistons are ready to win, but I do think Monty Williams with this team, and you kind of have your, like, main young guy in Cade Cunningham, I think situationally it's not as bad. It's not as bad because I mean, look, I know the Pistons dropped in the lottery, but it's still a top 5 pick. You got your first overall pick in Cade Cunningham. You got Jaden Ivey, so you have your backcourt, and like you kind of already tanked this here. You dropped to 5. It's fine. I know it sucks, but now it's kind of like after 3 years, you're gonna have to be serious about trying to like make moves here. And I think Monty Williams is the perfect like coach for them. I really do. Now it's like you want to make like you want to teach these young guys something. Like so far, Kate Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, all these young guys, all they know so far is losing. That's all they know. It's losing. And now you want to bring an established veteran coach who they'll listen to. Why not bring Monty Williams? In my opinion, that's how I feel. For the Raptors, Nick Nurse gone. I gotta say this, man. I think the Toronto Raptors are like one of the most overrated like instances of quote unquote culture. I think Masai Ujiri is an overrated president of basketball operations. Like, congrats. Like, I know he has like a good track record of fleecing the Knicks. Ooh, what a such a high bar to climb. But yeah, I know he made that trade for Kawhi and they won a championship. But like, what this Raptors organization? What are they doing, man? I don't know. I never understood the hype of the Raptors organization. I understand like they've maintained a level of success, the last decade or so. But like they've only won one championship. Like I don't understand the appeal to them, man. And now like I also don't know their direction going forward. Like, do you get an established coach or like do you go young? But again, if you go young, like you have like players like OG Anunoby. I don't even know if he's gonna be there. Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet. Like, what kind of coach do you get? Like, do you move on from these players? The Raptors, I'm a little like confused on who they could get to be their coach because I don't know the direction. Are they gonna go young or are they gonna like try to quote unquote win? Because when you have idiots like Scotty Barnes, I mean, like players like Scotty Barnes, I mean, and apparently he's not enough to trade for Kevin Durant. Like, what are you gonna do, right? Like, clearly you don't want to like move on from like. Clearly you don't want to. You want to go young, but also you don't want to like be bad. So I don't know. I don't know what the Raptors do. So do you guys have any suggestions in terms of what the Pistons or the Raptors should do? I think. I mean, the Nick Nurse also he made that comment saying good luck with these guys on his way out to Masai Ujiri. So it's clear that Nurse and the Raptors kind of didn't see eye to eye anymore. Like I think he lost the locker room. So I don't know, man. The Raptors they're a dark horse. I don't really know where they go from here. But like, do you guys have any suggestions on like the Pistons and the Raptors? I think the Pistons did a good job. Like that was the right move to fire Dwayne Casey. Like he wasn't gonna go anywhere with them. I don't think he was the right coach for them. But any suggestions? What do you guys think?
I agree with you on the Raptors. I think they're kind of in no man's land, and they're kind of a little overrated, especially Masai Ujiri. If I was a head coach and I had to pick between the two teams, I'm picking the Pistons every single time. I know maybe right
Yep.
now I would say the Raptors are probably a better team, but just going forward, based on the talent, the young talent you have on the team, and kind of like you assorted to with the culture there, I'd lean with the Pistons. Cade Cunningham, I think, is I guess number one asset when you put the two teams together. And obviously another fifth pick, Jaden Ivey, Durant, all that kind of stuff. I'd pick the Pistons every single time. You mentioned Monty Williams. I think Monty Williams would be a great head coach in any of these openings, and I think he's going to be hired very quickly. Um, I would love to see him on the Pistons because that's a team that's a young upcoming team, and I think a veteran coach could take him to the next level going forward. I think Monty Williams is going to take the Bucks job if that happens, in my
Okay.
opinion. But as for another coach that I could put in these spots, I don't know. But I know if I was a head coach, I definitely would pick the Pistons over the Raptors.
Yeah. So in regards to who I would pick, I'm kind of with you guys. I think most people would go with the Pistons because of the established young core. I think the Pistons are the more likely of the two to go after an established, like a definitively veteran established head coach. In the like of Monty Williams, I don't think he'll go there. I'm kind of with Dame. I think Monty would probably rather go to the Bucks. I think. I also think, although I will say, I think part of the reason why the Pistons waited this long to hire a new head coach because we've known since the end of the regular season that they fired Dwayne Casey, but I think they've been waiting this entire time for some of these head coaches of playoff teams to get fired. And I think they're hoping for this opportunity to strike with Monty Williams. So I think the Pistons are more likely to go after a more established guy. I think the Raptors, when you talk about Masai Ujiri, Chris, I think there's a clear indication of everyone but Scotty Barnes that was important to any semblance of good they've had the last couple seasons is going to be gone. I think there's an opportunity to make a trade with a team or two in the lottery for some of their pieces on the roster that are still under contract for the 2023-2024 season. I think there's going to be a rebuild there with Scotty Barnes at the piece of it. It just feels like that's where the Raptors are going. And if that's going to be the case, it makes no sense for them to go after a regurgitated retread of a head coach like some of these guys who got fired recently.
Well, they have a specific type, right? Like the Raptors, they like to keep things like in house. I feel like, right?
They do, which is why it could be a case of maybe they're just going to hire internally, whether it be. I mean, I don't know if they officially fired every single assistant that Nick Nurse had. I mean, I'm assuming they probably did. Or maybe they're going to hire their G League head coach from the Toronto 905 and make him the head coach, which is a similar thing what happened to Nurse. I think people forget he was the head coach of the 905. So it wouldn't surprise me if that's the case. And honestly, like, I don't want to critique the Raptors for that because good that we're getting some new blood in the coaching stream.
Yeah.
They're the ones that brought Nick Nurse in. If you look at coaching around all these leagues, it's incestuous to a degree that hasn't been seen since the Holy Roman Empire. Like, it's the same 30 to 40, depending on how big your league is, 30 to 40 coaches that get brought up as head coaches every single year for like a 10, 15, 20-year goddamn stretch of time. Like, it's the same thing. So if that's why I'm saying I think the Raptors are the most likely of the 5 teams we've listed here. I think that the most likely of them to go with someone completely new, hasn't been a head coach before, first time head coach. And look, more power to them. I want more opportunities for more guys to become head coaches. I'm sick of this. Doc Rivers can go retire. Mike Budenholzer can go, learn Chinese. No, Mike Budenholzer can learn Chinese and become a 3-time champion in the CBA or choke in the CBA finals, which would probably be more expected. Like I'm done with these same head coaches getting the same opportunities. I want the new blood to take over. And if the Raptors do that, that'd be awesome.
Okay, so well, I mean, you guys talked about Monty Williams, like likely. You guys linking Monty Williams to the Bucks, right? I could see that. I wonder because the Bucks, right? They are ready to win now. They're a championship team. They are intriguing to me because I also think their window is also slightly closing. I know that's kind of nuts to hear because they have Giannis, but I think they were sold, right? Like the owner sold them. I think they have a new owner now. Drew Holiday's getting older. Brooke Lopez is getting older. Middleton's getting older. They are kind of, I don't know, like there's something weird about the Bucks here, and I think there's a little bit of cautiousness when you go to the Bucks because I know you have Giannis, but the future of that team isn't as clear as we may think it is. They're like the next head coach. It's gonna be an important next step because it could indicate a lot of things. Like if they go young, are they preparing for like a lot of? Are they preparing for some like movement this summer if they go a little young? And I'm not saying like Joe Mazzulla levels of young, but like someone a little younger than freaking Mike Budenholzer. Like, do they go like these like what you're saying, Jurg, a little bit of like an unknown name, or do they go more established name? Like, imagine they go after Doc Rivers. Good God, would that be hilarious if the Bucks go after Doc Rivers?
Giannis has every right to leave, and that would be the case.
Well, do you think? Well, I'm assuming Giannis has a say in who they might bring in, or he might be humble to be like, you guys do whatever you think.
Bro, he pisses like I love Giannis, but he gets me so mad.
I know.
Act like the fucking superstar you are. You are the face of the league. You are the face of your franchise. You're the face of the organization. You tell Mike Budenholzer, no, I'm deciding this game. You tell Mike Budenholzer, put me on Jimmy Butler the whole series. Giannis, stop being so humble.
So passive aggressive.
Stop.
I don't know, man.
Like you should be the guy. Real quick, Chris, to the point you're making about the Bucks. Chris Middleton has a player option, so he could opt out. And
he's picking that up, probably.
You think so? I think he's gonna opt out, man.
How much is he making?
But dude, he's made a couple All-Star teams the last few years. Someone's gonna pay him more than what his current contract is.
I don't know, man. He's on the downhill.
Chris, think about it. It's not about the 1-year payout. It's remember when Gordon Hayward opted out of his deal in Boston? Everyone's like, "What the hell are you doing?" But he got another $100 million contract. It's about securing the bag for another 4 or 5 year deal. I promise you. I'm not saying it would be the 100% right decision. Although I think Chris Middleton's not too bad of a player. Someone will pay $150 million to Chris Middleton this offseason. And whether it's the Bucks or someone else, someone's going to do that. Brooke Lopez is a free agent. Giannis is up in 2 seasons' time.
Telling you, man.
2025, he has a player option. And if this team doesn't have it, anything together by then, if it doesn't have his case together, then it's bad. If the Bucks do not make the NBA Finals again over the next 2 seasons, there's going to be trouble in paradise, because we detailed it not last episode, what, 2-3 episodes ago, Chris. Ever since the season where Giannis won his first MVP, this team has been to the conference finals twice only, and that is absolutely abhorrent, below standards to what you should have when you have the best player in basketball on your team.
So he has $40 million for next season if you were to if you were to opt in for the player option. I don't know. I really I don't I wonder like what is the climate for like what is the perception around Chris Middleton? Like you're maybe like a team like the Spurs who who won the draft lottery. They're just like, yo, we might want to win now.
But
Screw it, let's give
Chris,
Middleton some
Chris,
money.
the thing is, like, you're thinking more towards his yearly salary. I'm thinking Chris Middleton is going to take 4 years, $140 million over just 1 year, $40 million. Like,
I don't know who would offer him that money.
he's gonna get it, man. We still see. I don't want to call it a bad contract. Chris Middleton's a good player, but we've seen contracts like that given the last couple of years. Like someone will pay him, and he's gonna take the bigger payout.
It's weird. Like the Bucks' direction is so weird. Like I can't call it. I cannot call it. But I mean, Monty Williams wouldn't be a bad hire. Well, we spoke about Doc Rivers. 76ers fired Doc Rivers. So this is funny because like the right move, of course, to fire Doc Rivers, who was the most overrated coach in NBA history in the sport of basketball. But apparently, there's rumors that this was spearheaded by I'm using that word a lot. This was spearheaded by James Harden and.
The fact he might leave though just makes it funny,
right? Like that's what I don't understand, because there's a high possibility that James Harden might leave, but if he's behind this, well, I also think James Harden has a very close relationship with Daryl Morey, so I don't know, because where does Embiid fall in all this? Because there's also reports that he was close with Doc Rivers as well. But look, you had to get rid of him. You had to get rid of Doc Rivers. Like this is why I was not sweating when the Sixers went up 3-2. Against the Celtics, because Doc Rivers is at the helm, so I knew that was going to be a choke job. But like 70, I don't want to repeat myself, but again, the future of the Sixers is not clear. We've talked about this like for a bit now, that window is closing, but I know you have Embiid, but Embiid's going to turn 30 soon, by the way. Who do you guys see the Sixers getting? Like, I don't, like, maybe Sam Cassell? Sam Cassell, I think, would be a decent hiring for them, right? Who really goes to the 76ers? Because you kind of have to, it's hard, man, to, like, kind of, to get that team to live up to its potential. Like, if I'm a coach and I find out, okay, Harden's going to leave, like, what now? Like, what's the direction going forward? Where do you guys see the Sixers going? Dame, do you have any names or suggestions that might be enticing?
I have no idea the Sixers' direction. So I guess Sam Cassell, that's a good one, but I don't know how, if the rumor's true, I don't know how you let James Harden dictate who your next head coach is going to be,
right?
Or who your current head coach is going to be, when there's rumors all season long that he's most likely looking to leave to Houston. Like I don't understand how you even let him dictate that. I guess Daryl Morey has a hard on for James Harden after all these years. It's the only thing that makes sense. But just that fact, even the fact, if it's not true that James Harden like kind of wanted Doc Rivers out, the fact that that's even a rumor just shows like this organization is lost and doesn't know what they're doing. So I just feel like whoever they hire as a head coach is going to be a stupid decision one way or another.
Jurg, do you have any idea?
I was just reading up. Sam Cassell is actually one of the names that is rumored for the job. So bang on, Chris. Monty Williams is also there. Everyone that needs a head coach right now is going to interview Monty Williams. So let's just get that out of the way. And Nick Nurse is also a name that I saw for the Philadelphia 76ers job as well.
I think I saw Mike D'Antoni as well.
You know what? Yep, Mike D'Antoni too, man. He might take over one of these guys.
That might be it, man. Oh.
No, you know what? I could see Mike D'Antoni coaching the Pistons too.
I would love Mike D'Antoni in the Pistons.
You're telling me his run and gun offense with Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham, also two guys that are very coachable. Jaden Ivey is a coach's kid. His mom is a head coach at the NCAA Division I level, and Cade Cunningham is just like, for a guy like a number 1 overall pick, guy who went to a not exactly powerhouse school and ended up going number 1 overall, didn't play in the NCAA tournament. Does that sound familiar to a guy who's considered a diva now, but Cade Cunningham's actually humbled? Gee, I wonder. But I think Mike D'Antoni to Detroit, either Detroit or Philly makes sense. But man, I feel like if D'Antoni goes to Philly, I think Harden stays because like the joke for a while is that the 76ers are basically building the Houston Rockets just now with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey there. I will say this with Philly though, there needs to be some not massive, but like roster reconstruction that happens because Tyrese Maxey is going to do his big boy deal here soon, and Tobias Harris needs to be traded off that goddamn team somehow. I don't know how they're going to be able to do it. He needs to be off that team. It's rough. Like, and honestly, Chris, because you mentioned all the head coach openings, if the Cleveland Cavaliers had not said at the end of the first round series against the Knicks that JB Bickerstaff's job was secure, we would have had 3 of the top 4 seeds in the East potentially have their coaches be fired or did get fired this offseason. They decided to pick Bickerstaff. I don't necessarily 100% agree with that statement, but the fact is that in the East, a lot of shaking up happening at the top of the food chain in the Eastern Conference, and that makes things very interesting.
Now there's these Damian Lillard rumors going around with like the Sixers, and I don't know, man. I don't know. I can't call it for some of these teams, but Mike D'Antoni is interesting. Even though I think Sam Cassell deserves a little more. That leaves the Phoenix Suns. Man. What do we think, fellas? Because this team, the Phoenix Suns, are gonna have to make some movements this offseason because you gotta trade Ayton. That boy don't want to be there. Chris Paul's getting older. You have 0 bench, and if you trade Ayton, like you kind of like need to find a center. I don't know. Like I don't understand the Monty Williams firing. Like why?
It was
Kevin
from
Durant,
the owner, from what I've heard.
I mean, yeah, but like I'm assuming he signs off on it with Booker and like Kevin Durant. I don't know, man. Just Kevin Durant, just a lot of red flags then, bro. Every time. But like, I mean, who do you guys see going to this Phoenix Suns? I think who what was that name? It was a name I heard. Dude, apparently Isaiah Thomas might be a name for them.
Oh no, that's
Yeah,
going to be
I
a repeat
heard
of
that.
Brooklyn. That's going to be a repeat of Brooklyn.
What are we doing, bro? Well, what do you guys see with the Phoenix Suns? Any one of you could jump in.
Just not that, please.
Yeah,
Oh,
honestly,
no.
anyone but that. Maybe Mike Budenholzer. I don't know.
That's funny. No way.
I don't
Kevin
see
Durant
them. I don't
agrees to
see them
that.
going with a young guy because I just feel like the young guy wouldn't get respected by KD or Devin Booker.
But I also think like they don't want to coach. Kevin Durant doesn't want to coach. Like he just wants to hoop.
I don't
Like,
think.
he just
I
wants
don't think
vibes.
Devin Booker does either.
Yeah, and there you go. So I don't think they want a coach that like does X's and O's. I think they just want someone like just like do whatever you want. That's why they signed off on Steve Nash when he was in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't want X's and O's. Like Kevin Durant, like this vibes could only get you so far, as you can see the last 4 years with him. I don't
Vibes
know.
get you nowhere. You
They
haven't,
don't.
you
They
haven't won
don't.
anything.
I don't know, man. Kevin Durant, he is boys, he not beating the allegations, man. He is I don't know. I really don't know. Like, where do you go? What happens with Paul and Ayton?
They're both
gonna
off
have
the
to be-
team.
it's gonna be-
They're both off the fucking
It's
team.
gonna have to be a coach that's like willing to accept like a bunch of bullshit.
Can I
So,
list a
go ahead,
rumor
go
here
ahead.
really quick from
Go
what
ahead.
because I've been reading over the last 24 hours. So this guy is currently on another team. It would require, I don't know what
Ty
it would
Lue.
require. Yep, Ty Lue.
That'd be crack.
A lot of places I'm seeing is Ty Lue. I'm reading on a site now, and it would be freaking hilarious. Do you want to hear this real quick, guys? I'm reading like a list of like 5 head coaching candidates the Suns could potentially go after. Number 4 on this list is pure comedy. Steve Nash.
Oh, but no. Oh man, I don't see it. I don't see it
Oh my god, it would be a comedy of errors.
because I think like no way Kevin Durant agrees to that. 0 shot. I think he's the reason why they fired Steve Nash.
He's the reason why he was hired and fired.
Yeah,
who knows?
bro, KD's such a bitch, bro. Jesus Christ. I don't know. Phoenix Suns, too tough to call. I feel like it's like the election. I just saw Succession. It's like too close to call right now. I can't call it for the Suns. All right, that'll do it for the head coaching vacancies. Yeah, Monty Williams, Budenholzer, Doc Rivers, Nick Nurse, Dwayne Casey, all fired. Some of those guys might be coaches soon. They probably will. We'll see how this goes. We'll talk about it once they hire. But that leaves us, once they get hired, that leaves us to the NBA draft lottery that occurred a few nights ago. Fellas, some eventful stuff happened. Okay. 14-1. Let's go here. 14th pick goes to the New Orleans Pelicans. 13th pick goes to the Toronto Raptors. 12th pick goes to Oklahoma City Thunder. Very surreal not having OKC in the top 5. 11th pick goes to the Orlando Magic, which is from the Chicago Bulls because of the Vucevic trade. Aha! 10th pick goes to the Dallas Mavericks. Should have gone to the Knicks, but of course, top 10 protected. 9th pick goes to the Utah Jazz. Fuck you, Danny Ainge. 8th pick, Washington Wizards. 7th pick, Indiana Pacers. 6th pick, Orlando Magic. That's their own, so they have 2 high draft picks. 5th pick goes to the Detroit Pistons. They dropped from like the first projected overall. They had the worst overall record in the NBA, and they dropped to 5. 4th pick goes to the Houston Rockets. 3rd pick goes to the Portland Trailblazers. They moved up. 2nd pick goes to the Charlotte Hornets. 1st pick goes to the San Antonio Spurs. Fellas, as a Spurs enthusiast here, one of my favorite teams, this was big, but let's not talk about them yet. Let's talk about them last. I think there was no movement in terms of like the order until the 5th pick, which was the Detroit Pistons, that was the lowest they could have dropped, and they dropped to that place, which is hilarious. Look, Pistons fans, I understand, man. I understand the frustration. I understand, just the annoyance, but I mean, it's still a top 5 pick. Again, I'm not in tune with the draft this year. I only know the top 3 prospects, and then I know the 2 Thompson twins or something. I don't know, two Thompson brothers. Again, so I don't know. Like, obviously there was a huge gap between Wembanyama and everyone else, but then after Scoot Henderson and Brandon Miller, I just don't know anyone else. But I mean, it's got like I know it feels tough. Like you're from a Knicks fan, right? I mean, we dropped from 1 to 3, which isn't as bad, but I don't know, man. It's a top 5 pick. You can't be too mad, but again, dropping that far, it stings. I understand. You know why I don't like the Pistons can't feel too bad is because you have Cade Cunningham. You guys won the lottery like a few years ago, man. You guys like it's not the worst thing in the world. If you missed the 1st pick that year, then maybe I'd feel a little bit more sad for you guys. But I mean, come on, guys, you'll live. You'll live. Portland moving to 3. I think they were 1 ball away from actually getting the 1st overall pick, but they moved to 3. Guys, they obviously like I'm seeing rumors that they want to trade this pick for to build around Damian Lillard, and I'm ad nauseum. We've talked about the Blazers. I don't want to do this anymore. I really don't. If this organization is stupid enough to not trade Damian Lillard, whatever. I can deal with dumb. I can't fix stupid. The Blazers are stupid. And you know what's crazy is that I think add the package deal you would get for a Damian Lillard trade, right? Bro, you have Anthony Simons. You would have the 3rd pick. You have Shaedon Sharp. Like you have some decent young pieces to build this like team around, bro. So add that with like the Damian Lillard package. Come on, bro. You are set for like a decent rebuild, bro. I know it's Portland and it's like you guys struggle to like get your free agents and such, but Jesus Christ, bro. Let's just be smart about this. Who would you get for the 3rd overall pick? Let me know. That would
Julius Randle.
I mean, yeah. They're dumb, but I don't think they're that dumb. But like, no, literally, which player could you realistically see being traded that you think would propel the freaking Blazers into like serious conversation?
Oh, that's a different question. I was gonna say I had a trade idea of what Portland could do with the 3 pick.
Tell me, what's the trade idea?
So again, not propelling them, but if you like you said, Chris, you're expecting them to make a trade that just to quote unquote rebuild. Calling the Raptors and OG and Pascal for the 3rd overall pick, and maybe there would be a little bit more.
Both?
But yes, neither of them is worth just the 3rd overall pick. There is no. The only players worth a top 3 pick are the superstars and definitive stars of this league, and OG and Pascal are not that.
I don't think Masai does that. I think he's too stubborn to do that.
Then
I think he wants king's ransoms for both.
You're not going to get that.
I mean, I agree, but like that's probably what he's thinking.
I have 2 options for you: the 3rd pick in a draft where there's a definitive top 3, or future picks that you may not know what to do with, because apparently none of these general managers know what to do with all their future 1st-round picks. Danny Ainge, Sam Presti, New Orleans Pelicans. I don't know. Like you got to play ball at some point. The trade market will regress. OG Anunoby, if you expect a team to be fleeced by that, I'm sorry, the Minnesota Timberwolves don't have any more 1st-round picks to send you. They gave them all up for Rudy Gobert. Like I don't know.
And guess what?
What you expect here.
are like aware of like what happened to the Timberwolves.
Yeah, and they're not going
like
to do it.
now,
So it's why,
yeah.
like, if I can trade two in a realistic sense,
Mm-hmm.
Siakam and OG would both get you a definitive first round pick and a prospect, maybe a second round pick or two, like each. So I'm talking about 2 first round picks. I'm taking my odds with the 3rd overall pick than 2 random first round picks that God knows where they'll be. Like I understand Masai Ujiri. I'm not on the same boat exactly, Chris. I think Masai is a little bit better than you're kind of giving him credit for, but like this is why I say some GMs play a little bit too cute. Stop playing cute, man. Get the max possible value back for your players right now. With OG is a little bit more valuable, maybe because I think he has at least one more year after this. Pascal Siakam, I think, can walk after this season. Like he has no incentive to stay in Toronto. There is no incentive for you to try to haggle. It's 1 year left. Like you need to stop playing these games. If both these guys were at 3-4 year lefts on their deal, okay, maybe you have a little bit of a different conversation. But it's not that case. They're not those guys. They're not. Like I'm with you though. Like I think I'm sick of Portland either trade the pick or trade Dame. It's that simple. If you use this 3rd overall pick, you're not going to be a title contender next season. Like you're just not. Figure it out. Like the rest of the teams in the top 5 and even top 10 are way more interesting than Portland at this point. I'm just done with that franchise.
I just don't know who they think they're gonna get. I don't. Jaylen Brown, like maybe what would you entertain that? Like yeah, but like does Jaylen Brown and Damian Lillard win you anything? No.
Why the hell
bro.
would Boston want to do that either? Like,
well, it depends. Like you just say like Brown requests a trade in that like event. Get the 3rd pick, maybe reroute that. I don't know. Also, like, would they trade? I think the Blazers are gonna make a dumb trade. Like, what if they traded for Paul George?
oh no,
What a win that would be for the Clippers.
you're right.
I don't know, man. I really don't. That's gonna be confusing. But I think ultimately they will trade that pick. I do think they will trade that pick. I mean, we talked about Houston. They might trade that pick just in case they get Harden or some shit. Okay, let's talk about the top 2 teams. Charlotte Hornets. Man. Haven't they like missed every time there's like a generational big man in the draft? They've always picked 2nd, apparently. Here's the thing. If I'm them, look, I'm reading this now. Apparently, Brandon Miller's doing awful in interviews. Even before this dropped, between him doing bad in interviews, in my opinion, you go Scoot Henderson here. 1,000%. I understand he's a guard and like, is he a little too undersized to play the shooting guard? Maybe. Who cares, bro? Just pick best player available. LaMelo Ball is a pass-first point guard. He'll get Scoot the ball whenever he can. You have a dynamic backcourt right there. And you would make LaMelo a lot happier because, like, he's probably going to re-sign the rookie max, but, like, he ain't staying, bro. I mean, this is the most you can is kind of just, like, delay the inevitable. But I think Scoot and LaMelo would be a very fun backcourt. Very fun backcourt. And I think it would be so electric. I think he's low-key a compliment, like the best compliment to LaMelo. I know Brandon Miller plays a 3 and like they're in need of some wings, but fuck it, bro. Go best player available, man. I think Scoot Henderson would be the 1st overall pick in a lot of drafts that doesn't include Victor. So I would pick him. I know Brandon Miller, people have him as like ahead of Scoot for some people. I don't know. I don't see it. I know Brandon Miller is talented, but if I'm the Hornets, bro, just build a generational backcourt there. Like, what would you guys do if you're the Hornets here? Dame?
I would go Scoot as well. I know it kind of doesn't fit because obviously Scoot's a guy that needs the ball, and obviously LaMelo is Super Bowl dominant. And it just makes sense that you go with Brandon Miller to get you kind of a wing on the outside because you need one of those. But I just think Scoot's so much better than Brandon Miller, and I think this is just a big drop-off from 2 to 3. I think the gap between 2 to 3 is bigger for 1 than 1 to 2. Just saying. But
Yeah.
I think just having Scoot and LaMelo Ball, who bring you different things to the game. Like Scoot's a lot bigger, kind of stockier guy compared to LaMelo's kind of more on the slimmer side. LaMelo's more of like a playmaker, getting everybody the ball. Scoot's kind of downhill, like slasher, like body through guys. So it's not like you're getting 2 guards that have like the same game. You're getting 2 guards who do very different things that could help you win ball games and be a very exciting backcourt. So I would go Scoot if I was them. I don't know if they will. Um, but with these Brandon Miller rumors coming out, you just never know. But if I was them, I'd definitely go Scoot.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. Best player available at the number 2 overall pick. You said it, Chris. Any other year, he probably would be the favored number 1 pick. You go with Scoot. I think for what Charlotte is trying to build, I think you can surround
What are
LaMelo.
they trying to build, Jurg?
Well, let's let's give a little bit of leeway here. I think for Charlotte, what you are attempting to build, whether it be out of actual bricks or popsicle sticks, you're trying to make something happen there. And I think you have a better chance of surrounding LaMelo and Scoot with the talent they need than LaMelo and a Brandon Miller.
Right.
Like, and I'm someone who I think is higher just on the pure skill set of Brandon Miller than most are. I had a season of watching highlights of college basketball this year. Like, Brandon Miller was pretty good, but I think LaMelo and Scoot, it's a seamless
It's
duo.
sexier.
It's not even that. It's a more seamless duo whose games play off of one another more. Like Brandon Miller, I think him and LaMelo, it would take a little bit more time. Whereas I think from day one, I'm seeing LaMelo or Scoot alley-oop the ball to one another. That's what I see out of the two of them. So I would go with Scoot. Again, Charlotte at number 2, you mentioned it, Chris, because 04 they get Emeka Okafor and not Dwight Howard. And 2012, they get Michael Kidd-Gilchrist and not Anthony Davis. I will say that Scoot Henderson will be better than both of those guys. So there's that. But yeah, no, it's tough luck, man, to say the very least. But hey, if you're gonna unfortunately become the number 2 overall pick in your draft this year in 2023, which Charlotte Hornets go join the Anaheim Ducks over in the NHL in that queue, you're still getting a really good player. So
Yeah, I don't know. It's. I also didn't understand the Steve Clifford signing for them as their coach. I think it was a Jordan signing though. Jordan isn't there anymore. I don't know.
I was gonna say, didn't he sell or he's about to sell his shares?
I know he's about to.
So did he just screw over the team one more time by hiring Steve Clifford?
I think he hired him before it was announced though. I don't know. I don't
Okay,
know.
but even before it was announced, like that doesn't mean he decided that day. That means that he was thinking about it.
I mean, Jordan's a piece of shit owner.
I mean, yes, he is, and maybe a human being sometimes, but in the same instance, like that one, I think he's just screwing over Charlotte basketball one last time. He's like, if I couldn't make you anything, I'm going to make sure the next guy struggles with you too.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming he's not making the pick here, so
Let's hope not.
Let's hope not. Okay. First overall pick goes to the San Antonio Spurs. They won the Victor sweepstakes. Fellas,
Well deserved.
well deserved. Kevin Wild, shout out first things first. Spurs don't tank often, but when they tank, they get generational bigs. Man, I think they were like second or third worst. No, they were the third. They had the third best odds. They were the third worst team. They knew what they were doing. I think this was the best possible spot for him to go to. I think this extends Pop's coaching career for a bit. I'm happy he goes there. I know they have a connection with France because of the whole Tony Parker thing. I mean, he's a generational talent, 1,000%. They get their man. I think he was excited to go there, which is also a big thing. He's going to be developed appropriately. He's going to be developed the way he should, and I think he's going to be on track to live up to his potential more so than any other team he would have been drafted to if it wasn't the Spurs. So the fact that he's on the Spurs, I think him fulfilling his potential, we'll see it at a quicker pace. There's going to be a quicker process. Best developmental staff, or at least one of them. So I think they'll do right by him. I know the Spurs organization have had some cracks over the last couple years. It's been a little weird with them. But again, Greg Popovich and Victor Wembanyama, this is like a match made in heaven, man. And my goodness, I know Pop was probably ecstatic that he got Victor. So shout out to him. Shout out to the Spurs. There's two things that I want to talk about before I wrap this up. For the Spurs, let me ask you guys, would you guys, so you get Victor, right? I think they have a decent young core. So you have Devin Vassell, you have Keldon Johnson, you have Trey Jones, you have Jeremy Sochan. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. But I think everyone there is a perfect fit next to Victor, right? I still think you need some help on the point guard position. But like if you're the Spurs, clearly this accelerates the process of the rebuild. What do you guys do this offseason? Like, they're going to have a lot of cap space. Maybe a Brook Lopez, possibly. You know? Maybe you go out there and look for a point guard. Like, what do you guys do if you're the Spurs? Like, do you kind of like it's tough to say go all in because like you're still young, but like do you kind of like accelerate that process of going in? Like, what do you guys do if you're the Spurs? Do you still like maintain patience, right, and just don't spend all your money?
So funny enough, I'm a fan of a team that's going to be doing this on the hockey side of things when it comes to the
Right.
Blackhawks in the first overall pick. What my hope is the Blackhawks do as a fan, and now what I think the Spurs should do, is that you now enter an interesting phase in your rebuild where you have a generational franchise piece that you do need to start taking steps a little bit earlier to try to compete, but you don't make rash decisions. You need to make smart financial decisions that will be that nice 2 to 3 year bridge for your franchise. Because let's be real here. With Victor Wembanyama and Connor Bedard in both these leagues, as talented as they'll be, we won't see the best of them, the true best of them, until potentially year 3. So the first 2 years of their own personal development curve is finding out the kinds of players that fit best with them, figuring out the personalities in the locker room. Is your coach the right guy? Things like that organizationally. And it's about filling piece by piece when it makes sense. I think Brook Lopez is a very reasonable decision to make, Chris, because that's a smart defensive minded veteran. He was a defense player of the year candidate this season. I mean, good God, Greg Popovich with Brook Lopez, like that just feels like a match made in heaven. Even back to his Brooklyn days before he reinvented his game, Brook Lopez always felt like a guy that a Greg Popovich could do work with. And now you have him being just that veteran in the locker room there for Vic. Even maybe some nights Vic doesn't always need to play the 5. I think that's kind of how you have to go with Vic to an extent, maybe playing him more at the 4 than the 5. So I think that's ultimately the success that you need to try to have there in San Antonio. So I think Brook Lopez would be a very smart decision. You already signed Keldon Johnson to his extension. Devin Vassell's contract extension, I think, is going to come up in conversation this offseason. Trey Jones was fine. I don't want to disrespect him. I think if you could keep him as your long-term backup point guard, that would be excellent. I wouldn't, however, just throw my money at the first available point guard. What point guard is going to fit best with Vic? Is there a potential that maybe some guys on the team get a feel with him? You know, aspects like that. You need to take a delicate amount of time while making the right decisions. You can't be idle if you're San Antonio, right? Like I say this as a Blackhawk fan. Can't be idle this offseason, guys. You got to start filling out the roster a little bit with good, talented players. Talented players that could play at this level consistently and not being a 25, 30 win team next season. And if you are that, it's because you're not there yet, not because you're being a blatant tank job. Like that's what it's all about. So if you're San Antonio, make the smart decision or two. I could see 2 sizable contracts be signed. Like I'm talking like Brook Lopez style. Like I could see 2 of those kinds of contracts being signed by them, but I don't think it should be more than that unless it's a player that it's like, you know, like you fall in love with, maybe you think will translate super well with Vic. If you like, this is also the thing, you got to walk the fine line of smart and risk. And if you look at a guy and say, hey, maybe the sample size isn't big, but if you really can convince yourself, and if the tape shows you that you think he could work best with your franchise player, then do that. But it's about being smart. That's what it's ultimately about. Being smart and spending money now. You are not allowed to be a tanking team next season. You're not allowed to
Right.
be a top 5 pick next season with these kinds of players. You need to take that next step. That's plain, simple, to the point. Conversation over. You need to you're not going to be a playoff contender next season, but you need to show us that 2 years from now you're going to be a playoff contender.
Do you, if they, say for example, they sign Brook Lopez, a name if you want, you could answer this as well. They sign Brook Lopez. So do you slide Victor at the 4? I know it's crazy talk, but like he does have the game of like a stretch 4, especially with his like physique. Do you slide Keldon Johnson to the 3 and Devin Vassell to 2? Like, would you guys do that?
God, that's such a tall team, but I love it.
That is a tall team, but also that's a decent jump shooting team in my opinion.
That's great length.
Like, who stops that? Well, I mean, you could stop it, but like, I mean, I don't know. Like, Dame, what would you do?
I personally wouldn't put him at the 5. I'd go out and get a center that could go down there and bang and stuff.
So Lopez,
Like a Lopez, yeah. I don't see Lopez leaving Giannis in the Bucks. I just think that's such a perfect fit over there. But regardless, my main 2 things is going out and getting a starting center, so you don't have to start Victor at the center, and getting a point guard. because I think point guard might be even more important than the center because you need a guy who could distribute the ball and get Victor in good spaces. So Victor doesn't have to always dribble the ball and create by himself, create everything for himself. I think it's very important that he gets a point guard or the Spurs get a point guard that can make things happen and get open looks for Victor.
Who would that point guard be? Like I was looking at
Ricky
like free
Rubio?
agent.
You're bored?
Yeah, I
No.
could see Rubio. I mean, is he free? I don't even think he's a free agent. But like, I was looking at possible free agents this summer, and it's a weak class, bro. Like, ideally, like you're not gonna get Kyrie Irving, D'Lo, no. Russell Westbrook, no. Like, there's no other ideal.
So many no's.
Especially for the Spurs, like they have an acquired taste. Like I think they really might run. They might go trade. Yeah, trade. Is it Trey Jones?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think they might run him at the 1, bro. I really do. I don't know who else would play the 1 for them. I think that he might be a stopgap point guard, but like I think they'll do that until like they find a true one. But then again, like if you're gonna try to win now, like is he the guy that you want as like your number 1 position? I don't want this to be like anti Trey Jones. Like I like Trey Jones. He hasn't done anything wrong here, but I'm just saying expectations have now skyrocketed. Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting offseason for the Spurs, but who cares, bro? You can do whatever you want now. Like you got Victor, you got Big Vic. The last thing I'll say before we wrap it up: these expectations, guys, for him, dudes need to calm down. I don't blame him in the slightest. Media needs to chill the fuck out, bro. What? Calm down. Like if he's not a 5-time champion, if he's not flying, if he's not Hakeem at minimum, he's a bust. What are we talking about, bro? Calm the fuck down, bro. He hasn't stepped foot in an NBA arena yet, man. Or like an NBA court, an official game. Why is everyone's like? It's just he's a new shiny toy for like media pundits to like just talk about because it'll equal ratings now. So and the fact that he's on the Spurs, I'm pretty sure everyone's salivating at that. It's just like, well, now he's got to be a GOAT. You need to chill out, man. I feel so bad for the kid, but I guess it's the territory that it comes with, bro. I don't know, but I'm happy for him. I'm happy with the Spurs, one of my favorite teams, and he goes there. Man, next year's gonna be fun to watch, and I'm glad because both of our favorite teams, well, me, Damien's favorite team and Jurg's favorite team, we're in the East Coast. We don't get to see that dude. We only see him twice a year going forward. So thank Christ for that. Any final thoughts, gentlemen, before I wrap it up?
Nah, I'm kind of with you.
Nothing.
Like there's a weird addiction in the media and also the fandoms. It like we place these expectations on these guys and then we're quote unquote disappointed that they didn't meet them, bro. That's your personal delusions. Like,
Yeah.
You know what I'm expecting from Vic from day 1 on the NBA to play a game. Like that should be the minimum expectation right now. This is a kid with a different body type. Hopefully he doesn't Chet Holmgren himself and go to a stupid scrimmage game that means absolutely nothing and run back on defense to guard someone. Like that's all I want. Get Vic to day 1 of the NBA season. You know what? That's my goal. That's my goal for next season. Like just shut up with all the expectations.
Absolutely. Man, Summer League might break ratings, bro. Summer League is maybe the most watched Summer League ever.
Yo, can they put Thunder Spurs as a Summer League? I want to see Chet versus Vic.
That'd be great. I'm pretty sure whoever gets Scoot, it'll be like a Victor versus Scoot. Like they'll probably make that a game because, I mean, they played before, right? I think it was the G League versus his France team. They're gonna build that rivalry up going forward so much. My God, it'll be like, oh, that happened before the league, then the Summer League. Now it's gonna happen in the league, the actual NBA league. But I'm all for it. I'm all for a Scoot versus Victor rivalry. It's crazy that we're getting that before they even step foot in an NBA court in an official game. But that'll do it for this week, an NBA dominated episode. NBA is kind of coming to a close now, but again, the draft coming up. I mean, it's just a never-ending cycle. Jurg, where can they find us on the socials?
Guys, you already know, at SomewhatSports for us on social media. Daily polls that you could vote on. You'll be voting on polls by the time this episode is aired, by the time we record this, by the time it airs, by the time in a week or two from now when you're listening to the next episode of the amazing Somewhat Sports Podcast. And by the way, if you are listening to this amazing show, whether it be on YouTube or Spotify, Somewhat Spaced in Sports, like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel, give us 5 stars, follow us on Spotify, let us know what you love about the show, and let us know what we can do for you. As I always say, podcast by the people, for the people. NHL last time, NBA this time. We talk all the sports, baby. And at the end of the day, guys, Chris said it earlier, the ice cream trucks are outside. The sun is shining. The weather, the temperature is rising. The summer of 2023 is here, which means it is once again the summer of the Somewhat Sports Podcast. Join us on the ride.
Beautifully put as always, Jurg. Beautifully put as always. Appreciate your words. To all listeners listening, we appreciate you for making it this far if you did. Jurg and Dame, awesome job as always. And until next time, peace.